backdrop of claims by the former Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Musa Datijo, that the Chief Justice of Nigeria wields enormous powers capable of derailing the course of justice. The House of Representatives has reiterated its readiness to look at the allegations and come up with what is best for the nation's judiciary. Justice Dattijo, who until recently was a member of the bench of the Apex Court, bared his mind on the need to prune the powers of the CJN, given the oversight functions he exercises on a number of legal institutions across the country.
Now, speaking at a valedictory session organized in his honor on Friday, Justice Dattijo said that the CJN is the chairman of the National Judicial Commission, which oversees both the appointment and the discipline of judges. He's equally the chair of the Federal Judicial Service Commission, the National Judicial Institute, and the Legal Practitioners Privileges Committee that appoints senior advocates of Nigeria. He maintained that the oversight functions of these bodies should not rest on an individual alone, as a person with absolute powers corrupts easily and absolutely. Let's now bring in Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Magaji Mato Ibrahim, to further join us on this conversation. Good morning and thank you for joining us, Leonard Silk. Okay, we'd like to please ask that you join the meeting with your audio so we can hear you clearly. We're not able to hear you. And whilst that is being sorted, I think it's important to mention that this is a very interesting conversation to have. We've seen several lawyers, several judges, share their perspective on this and how it's such an enormous power or enormous powers that have been given to the CJN, the power to be in charge of the NJC, Legal Practitioners Privileges Committee, the FGSC, that's the Federal Judicial Service Commission, and all these other bodies that supposedly involve the appointing of judges, the discipline of judges, the appointment of SCNs. Some would argue that it's against the principle of natural justice because there is some level of conflict of interest there. Yeah. You know that if you are the CJN or the CJN, then, I mean, he could easily, we're not saying that that has happened, could easily influence people to do their bidding because you know that he has a say in many of the major legal institutions in the country. Yeah.
Just also mentioned, Justice Dattijo in the speech also mentioned that, I mean, I've seen people react to it, and say that he initially didn't even want to give a valedictory speech or hold anything at all in his retirement, but he was forced to do so by his family. He's also had a very, very interesting profile in the time that he has been in the Supreme Court, and even prior, being in the Supreme Court. He's been, according to what what I read, he's been someone who has always stood up against injustice and stood up, to ensure that the judicial system in Nigeria is, continuously improved. It's not the first time that he's making similar complaints, about the way that things are, because I've seen that there's some criticism, and people have mentioned that, you've enjoyed this same judiciary in the mess that it has been, according to you, for so long, and then when you are finally deciding to step down, that's when you chose to say these things.
Up,
but
yeah.
From the truth about his history, you would see that he has repeatedly or every now and then complained about the issues in the judicial system. One of the things that he mentioned, I think just to mention it, he said, the Nigerian judiciary I'm exiting from today is far from the one I voluntarily joined and desire to serve and be identified with. The institution has become corrupt and turned into something else, which it's not a shocking statement to anybody. A lot of people agree and believe, that Justice Dattijo is completely, being factual here. It is the way that a lot of people see the Nigerian judiciary, and it, would take more than just unbundling the powers of the CJN for these things to change. But that might be a start. It might be a start.
All right, let's now bring in Ibrahim Magaji, SAN, Magaji Mato Ibrahim, SAN. Good morning, Leonard Silk. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're still having a bit of a struggle connecting with your audio. We're not able to hear you yet. We don't know if you've yet joined the meeting with audio. If you haven't, please do that. Okay. All right, can you please say something so we can confirm your audio?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And this is a very interesting conversation because you are an SAN and, of course, very capable of speaking about this. What are your thoughts on the idea that the CJN is an all-too-powerful position and that the powers and the offices that the CJN hold which of course spread across the Legal Practitioners Privileges Committee, the National Judicial Council and the likes, that these powers are enough to be abused and should be shared rather than put in the position of one person?
Well, good morning to you all and good morning, viewers. Thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to participate in this ongoing discussion in the space of Nigeria. First of all, we need to understand that the legal profession is a very conservative profession. It's not like any other arm of government that you have freedom to do as you like, and then you have checks and balances here and there. By the nature of the legal profession, the judiciary itself is the most conservative arm of government. Now, but departing from this a bit, I want us to understand it from a wider scope. The comment or the speech made by Honorable Justice Dattijo, retired, JSC, at his valedictory session was such that actually elicited a lot of commentaries from many people. But the truth about this is we need to understand the rationale behind the speech. If you stand with all due respect to say that the powers in the hands of the CJN are so enormous and are unnecessarily too much on him, and because of that, there are tendencies of abuses, you may not be too wrong, and at the same time, you may not be too right. The position has always been that for so many years. And if it has been like that, then why at this stage? Why the complaint at this stage? And even if you complain at this stage, to me, it's not enough for you to say the powers are too enormous and are too much in the hands of one person, without necessarily advising Nigerians. If you remove some of those powers which he mentioned, like he said, he's the chairman of the NJC, the chairman at the NJI, he's the chairman of Federal Judicial Service Commission, he is the chairman of the Legal Privileges Committee. Now, if you say these powers are too much in the hands of an individual who is the head of the judiciary, then the suggestion would have been you advise Nigerians, if you remove some of these powers, where else will you take it to? Where else will these powers be taken? If you say he's not supposed to be the chairman of the Privileges Committee, the suggestion would have been, okay, this person should have been, or social office should have been in charge of that position. If you say he's not supposed to be the chairman of NJC, the suggestion would also have been, this person should be the proper person to handle and not the CJN. So if you see, to be honest with you, from my understanding of the speech of Honorable Justice Dattijo, Musa Datijo, with all due respect, I saw it as coming from a kind of misgivings that probably should be addressed privately between him and the CJN. Because this is not the first. It wasn't as if it's in the hands of this CJN that all these powers were were put in the office. Yeah, but it has been like that. It has been the practice for the 47
let me
years.
Just quickly ask.
Said he has been in the judiciary. It has been like that.
Yeah. Let me just quickly ask. I understand. I mean, from what you started the conversation with, describing the way that the judiciary is, do you expect, or would you have expected, that while Justice Dattijo was in service, he will repeatedly, speak against the CJN and speak against, what he finds, maybe not properly set up with the Nigerian judiciary and the powers that the CJN should have? Or is it expected that, he has to deal with the system the way it is? He can't change it by himself. He has to deal with it the way he is, and this was his only opportunity of sharing that. According to what he said the current Nigerian judiciary is far from the one he joined in and desired to serve many years ago. So is it abnormal that he's only saying these things, or he's freer to say these things now that he's exiting the system?
Now, it's not abnormal for him to make suggestions at the valedictory session. It has been a tradition. But one thing we should also know is that they had greater opportunities far beyond the issue of valedictory speech, because they meet together, they hold meetings together, they decide together in most of their discussions, in most of their engagement. He was the number two. To me, he had better opportunities in the past to make suggestions. And if you see from the speech, there is nowhere he said he advised the current CJN on this and that he did not take the advice, or that all of them, the justices of the Supreme Court, have met together and discussed this issue, yet nothing is done. You could remember during the last the tenure of the last CJN, there was an issue that cropped out at the Supreme Court, and there was this general cooperation and understanding by all of them. They kicked against it, and at the end of the day, the whole idea leaked out, and we got to know, the public got to know, that there was something being done by the head of courts, which did not go down well with all the other justices. What that portends is that all of them have met together, and all of them have for one reason or the other, shared their views. So what I'm saying, there are better opportunities of making suggestions, so that it won't be as if you are coming out to castigate somebody, maybe for other personal reasons and the rest, and other things like that. Because even some of the offices that the complaint was going that were not filled up, they have been like that. The death of Nguta was since 2021, and then the current CJN just became CJN, I think, barely a year, or not even up to a year or so. So we have to look at it beyond the comment.
Can I quickly
look at the reality?
Are you saying that what the learned justice was alluding to a number of the complaints are mainly because of personal issues, not necessarily what is reflected in Nigeria's judiciary?
The temptation is there for some of us to look at it in that manner. You see, the reason I'm saying so is because it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing. This issue of all these offices being head by the CJN is not new. It has been there for the 47 years my Lord has been in office. So it's something that has been there. And if you say they are too much in the hands of an individual, my point, with all due respect, is that you would have completed the suggestion by saying, okay, I suggest the second in command should be given this office, the third in command should be given this office, then only this and this should be left in the hands of the CJN. But don't forget, the judiciary is a very conservative profession, like I've said in the beginning of my discussion with you. And if it's not like a political setting, it's something that has to do with nobility, respect, and most importantly, respect for seniority. So if you say I am the head, then I don't have right to decide this, I don't have right to decide that, and I don't have right to preside over this. I think something should be looked at beyond the comment. And we should understand the nature of the legal profession and the judiciary itself. It is only when we understand it from that point of view that we'll realize that it's not enough for you to say all this without driving home your point.
All right, Lelene Silk, I think I get the picture of what you've tried to say concerning what my Lord should have maybe done differently. You've talked about how this has been going on for years. It's not just something that started today, and I quite agree with you. But my Lord is not the only person who has expressed concerns about this. I've read articles where different lawyers, I believe Egbun Adeboruwa also had granted an interview where he complained about the same thing. So I've seen different lawyers express their opinion on this, and now it's you that I'm asking now, your thought on this. Should we potentially look at reviewing practice in such a way that the powers are being shared, that it's not, do you consider it a problem? I know you've said that this is how it's been done, but we know that the fact that something has been done a certain way does not necessarily mean that it's not open to change. So do you think that this is something that should go on, or is it an area that we should explore, changing, maybe working on what the provision of the Constitution says, and what the necessary codes, the necessary acts and laws governing this says?
Now, thank God you mentioned the Constitution. For anybody calling for change, the person is also calling that the Constitution should be amended. And until that is done, you can't be calling for change administratively the way and manner it is being done at the moment. But then again, I still stand my position. If you insist that the powers are too much in the hands of an individual, and you have decided to keep quiet at that level, I don't think you are helping the nation that much without necessarily condescending to the position you think should have been the right thing. For instance, if you say the CJN should not be this, should not be that, I expect that you should suggest to us or to Nigerians who should hold this office, who should not hold this office, who should be there, so that at the end of the day, you can also suggest, by way of suggestion, that the CJN should be left with only this and this to control. And if you begin to look at it politically, the way it is being looked at, I think the whole idea will be watered down. Because the judiciary is not like the executive arm of government, where federal character can play a key role like others. The judiciary is also not like the National Assembly, where representation as a matter of law becomes mandatory. For instance, if representation here is mandatory and it is being observed, the fact that there is natural occurrence, maybe death or something, and then the position is for one reason or the other not being filled for so many reasons, like it has been the habit of Nigerian government, that you have this situation and that they are not being addressed timely. To me, it's not enough, because we have to be careful the comment we make. It may elicit some kind of threat and some kind of feeling that someone somewhere is being cheated upon. It might be.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time for this conversation. I'm hoping that we can have you back again, because what I was looking to get was your own position on this, not my Lord's position on this, to find out if you had the same, thoughts. Do you think it's not about what my Lord has said? And you've categorically and clearly said that he should have given a suggestion as to what the alternatives should have been. I was asking your own thought. Did you think it's, the powers were too much? Also, I was hoping that we could have talked on, he had talked about the inadequate representation of the judges from the 6 geopolitical zones, and we had currently 4 judges from, we had judges from 4 geopolitical zones being represented, and there wasn't adequate representation. So I was hoping that you could, maybe in 30 seconds, react to that, sharing your position, not my Lord's position, and then the representation of judges from all geopolitical zones.
No, my position is simple. It is very proper, and it is in accord with the law and the federal character that all geopolitical zones should be represented. My position also, as to the powers constituted in the office of the CJN, remains that this position for now is the best position for my understanding. That the CJN should be, we have only one head of courts. That is my position on this.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much for stopping by. Justice Dattijo, of course, has said what he said now. I remember, or I know that you've mentioned that, these are things that he could have said, internally, or could have maybe also done, one thing or the other to influence while he was still there. But we do not know 100% that he didn't try or to make these changes or to influence some of all these things while he was there. So we can't necessarily say that, it's wrong to speak about it when you didn't make any attempts to fix it back then. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We will bring you back again, and of course, see if there's going to be any reactions to this from the CGN or from other members of Nigerian Judiciary, and have you join us again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.